Good morning and good afternoon to everybody out there today, and welcome to our webcast. Today at Range 4 we're going to be talking about our DevOps education services. I'm Helen Beal, I'm one of our DevOpsologists here at Range 4. Today I'm joined by fellow DevOpsologist Malcolm Namey. Malcolm has Wi-Fi issues though, so he's probably going to be quite quiet, but if you could just say hi for now, Malcolm, and then hopefully you could join in a bit later on as well.
Hello everyone, hope you enjoy the session we're going to run.
Thanks, Mal. So let's have a quick look at what we're going to cover today. So here's the agenda. So we're going to be looking at the various DevOps courses that we offer here at Range 4. So starting with the DevOps Foundation course and then looking at, this is like a pair of courses, the Agile Service Manager and Agile Process Owner course. And then 4 new courses that we've got coming through, the Test Engineer, the DevSecOps Engineer, the CD Architect and the DevOps Leader course. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the Phoenix Project game. How that fits into our educational portfolio and how you might want to use it alongside some of these courses. So first of all, let's just spend a few minutes thinking about why people are doing DevOps. So I saw actually had an email today from Puppet saying that the 2017 State of DevOps report is just about to be out. I think they've got a kind of a preview webinar coming up around the 8th of June. I can remember that date because we've got an important general election here in the UK on that day, so it's quite memorable. So this is from last year's report. They've run it for about 4 or 5 years now. Really useful resource if you're trying to talk to your colleagues or budget owners about why you want to do DevOps and the kind of benefits you can get. So you can see here lots more deployments, better recovery from failure, much lower change rate, much shorter lead times, and overall much less time spent on unplanned work and rework. We spend a lot of time talking with customers about this one in particular. Most organisations we work with are quite bad at recording this and don't know how much waste is actually in their cycles, but we can help uncover that. Other benefits you might want to see, typically in the past when we've written sort of investment cases and business cases with organisations, they've often been around productivity savings. So you can take this many people out of the process. Most organisations that we work with right now, having been through quite an extended, nearly 10 years kind of recession, most organisations have been kind of scraped back to bare bones, if you like, a kind of skeletons. So there's not much fat in many of the organisations we work with in terms of extra people. So what we're really trying to talk about when we talk about DevOps, rather than removing people, people do get scared about DevOps sometimes when people start saying things like automate everyone out of a job and things like that. What we're actually really talking about is building more capacity into systems and removing waste. So being able to do more with the limited resources that we have. So a little note on our educational services with relation to this here, Bloom's taxonomy. Hopefully some of you have come across Bloom's taxonomy before. Basically, it's a way of thinking about learning and the kind of levels of learning that you get. So the first couple of courses we're going to look at, so DevOps Foundation course, for example, sits down here at the knowledge and comprehension level. And as we go up through the newer courses that are coming through, we move up these levels so we learn to apply the knowledge that we've comprehended and how to analyse it, synthesise it, and then make judgments based on what we know. So Bloom's taxonomy is quite a good way of just explaining quickly what level a course is aimed at. So our courses that we deliver are from the DevOps courses that we deliver are from the DevOps Institute. I sit on the board of regents at the DevOps Institute, and we are a DevOps Institute registered education partner. So we've been on the journey with the DOI at the DevOps Institute for several years now, since the start. We've run countless DevOps Foundation courses now worldwide. We'll have a look at that course in a bit more detail in a minute. But here we've got something quite new coming out of the DevOps Institute. So this idea of the game changer. So basically we've introduced these digital badges. So every time you take an exam and you pass and you get certified, you'll earn this digital badge, which you can share on your social networks, put it on your LinkedIn profile, that kind of thing. And then you get invited to the DevOps Institute as a member. So what we're doing is building this global learning community. So you'll get this membership free. And then you'll be able to chat to lots of other people about all things DevOps and people's experiences and learnings. So what we got here is kind of the map, if you like, the game plan of how to get to this game changer. place. So we've got the DevOps Foundation, which I've mentioned a couple of times already, and this is really where you start. Then you've got these other new courses. So there's a couple of courses that I've mentioned already, the Agile Service Manager and Agile Process Owner. And then we've got these other courses that enable us to basically practice these skills, so become some kind of practitioner. And then we have this game changer or DevOps professional capability that's coming through as well. So first of all, let's have a think about the DevOps Foundation course. Now, I did put a few of the course outlines in the handout section. So if you go to your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll find some handouts there. Unfortunately, there is a constraint here, which is we can only put 5 handouts in one webinar. So one of them that isn't there is this DevOps Foundation course outline. But what we'll do is we'll make sure that they're in the follow-up email. If you're listening to a recording of this webcast, then you may want to just drop us a line at hello@range4.com and let us know if which course outline it is that you're particularly interested in. So this is pretty much the de facto standard out there for the DevOps Foundation level. We've run it, as I said, countless times. We run it quite regularly, sort of every few months as a public schedule. We run it ourselves as public schedule, and then we often run it at events as a public schedule course as well. So I was doing one in London at DevOps Connect just, I think it was just last week. We also run it privately. So lots of organisations like to get a team of people in a room, or if they're very large organisations, they like to ripple DevOps thinking out through the organisation globally. So we end up running lots of the courses as we educate more and more people. So you can see here on the course outline, high level here, the kind of things that we're covering when we do this course. So it's very much not a kind of hands-on technical course. So you don't bring your laptop and play with Jenkins and Puppet and Chef. What we do is lots of interactive exercises and discussions, but it's not a technical course from that perspective. It does get quite technical, so you can see some of the topics here that we're talking about around continuous integration, delivery and deployment. Automation has a whole section over here as well. So we do end up having some pretty technical conversations all the way through about how to incorporate testing, how to manage requirements, how to measure value and monitor things effectively, lots and lots of parts of the DevOps toolchain that do come up. So that's DevOps Foundation course. As I said, we often run this privately as well. So this is Agron. Agron works for Half a Mantis. So Agron wanted his team. So you can see Agron's the head of DevOps. So he wanted his whole team to have a common understanding and shared understanding about what DevOps is about. So we went over to Switzerland. We're always quite happy to travel wherever you are. We can bring trainers to you. So we did this course, and I actually did this one. I was a trainer, and one of my favourite stories about this course was when we got to the first break, and we had just been talking about this concept we have in DevOps about never letting a known defect pass downstream. As we got to the first break, there was an outage, and I joined the war room, and it was a known defect that had been passed downstream. So it was really lovely to have such a real life scenario that we were able to hang a lot of the learning off. And we do try and do that as much as we can. So we'll always prepare when we do a private course and spend some time. Either we'll already be engaged in doing assessments and helping people on their DevOps evolution journey, or we'll try and get as much information as we can to prepare and understand what that organisation's particular challenges are. There are very much patterns and standard best practices and principles in DevOps, but I like to say that every organisation kind of has their own unique fingerprint, so they'll have their own sort of highest level constraints and their own challenges around culture and combination of things that they're trying to tackle. So what do we have to do to become a game changer? Well, let's have a look through these other courses that link up. So I've mentioned the DevOps Foundation course here already. The Agile Service Manager and the Agile Process Owner course. You've got the Agile Service Manager course outline there in the downloads. I'm just going to hop out of here for a second and just pop over here for a moment. So this is the Agile Service Manager course. As you can see at the top, it says that this is basically the operational equivalent to a certified Scrum Master. So what we're really trying to do here is we are training operations people to understand how Agile works, Scrum in particular, and use Scrum and Agile techniques in order to run the way that they deliver IT services. So it's like a an extra maturity level over ITSM, if you like. So you can see there are lots of Scrum things that we talk about when we're doing this particular course. And then the Agile Process Owner course as well, I just want to have a quick look at that. So where the Agile Service Manager course is the equivalent to Scrum Master, the Agile Process Owner course is the equivalent to Product Owner. So again, you can see here the kind of things that we go over. So this CAPO course, as we call it, Certified Agile Process Owner course, is less Scrum oriented than the CASM course, and more about the kind of process of owning processes. Some of it here, we talk about personas and user stories, themes and epics. You'll recognize some Agile terminology there. And then you'll recognize things like the Deming cycle and lean things when we talk about CSI, so continuous service improvement, and the PDCA cycles. So just going to pop back to the slides for a moment. So as I said, those are the 3 courses that we currently have. We've been running them for several years, lots and lots of graduates. And then we have new courses coming through. So we've got these 4 new courses: the DevOps Test Engineer, the Continuous Delivery Architect, the DevOps Leader, and the DevSecOps Engineer. So they're all coming through now. We're just getting the trainers through the training, getting all the materials sorted out, and they will be launched on our website as public scheduled courses in a matter of, I'm going to say weeks, but it's probably more likely to be days. So a couple of special notes here. One, the DevOps Foundation course is a prerequisite for these courses. Now, I have had some conversations with people who feel that they haven't done the DevOps Foundation course, but they're very DevOps savvy already, and they'd maybe like to jump to DevOps Leader. So this is an ongoing conversation we're having with the DevOps Institute. So there is potentially an opportunity to sit the DevOps Foundation exam without necessarily doing the course, and then you'll have the certification. But as I say, that's very much in conversation, and a conversation we need to have on a one-to-one basis. You'll notice here as well, another note, that the exams are 90 minutes. The exams for these previous courses are all 60 minutes. So they're multiple choice exams, all of them. There's around 40 questions in these exams. There's a few more questions, around 60 questions in these exams, and they're multiple choice. There's always an opportunity, if you're not a native English language speaker, to have an extension on the exam time as well. So let's have a look at these courses in a bit more detail. Let's start with the DevOps Test Engineer. So many of you will have heard about shifting left as a DevOps concept, and the importance of testing early, and the fact that quite a number of studies have shown that it's a lot cheaper and easier to remove defects earlier on in the cycle rather than letting them get through further and further into production and into live. So what we're really talking about when we're talking about DevOps testing is how to shift left. So what is the strategy around that? How do we automate tests? So what testing tools can we use, and how do we implement them into the continuous integration, continuous delivery workflows? So how do we, every time we commit code into branch, how do we perform a unit test, for example? How do we ensure when we're doing continuous delivery that our software is always in a releasable state, and that we know that it has already been tested on a production-like test environment? So lots of strategies around here. There's lots of constraints that we see with people, particularly around, as I just kind of mentioned, the production-like test environments is a really big constraint we see in lots of places. And there's some very interesting ways around how to resolve that. So who should do the DevOps Test Engineer role? Well, anybody that's interested in DevOps test strategies. Of course, the testing people. So if people have been traditionally working in a waterfall testing environment, perhaps they have been very manually testing products and software, they might want this as an introduction to DevOps thinking. But also, building quality in becomes everyone's job. This is a thing that we often say in DevOps. DevOps is not one person's job, it's everyone's job. And then we're going to say the same thing again in a few minutes, by the way, about security. But we'll say the same thing about quality. DevOps is about making better software faster and more safely. So everybody should have an understanding about quality as they are building, designing, thinking about the services and value that they want to deliver as outcomes to their customers. So let's move on from the DevOps Chapter Engineer and talk a little bit about the CD Architect, or the Continuous Delivery Architect course. So you can see the course objectives here, or the agenda items. So we're going to look at the principles about continuous integration and continuous deployment. Now, lots of people get confused about what's CI, what's CD, what's continuous deployment. I often call it CDEP to try and differentiate it from CD, which most people think of as continuous delivery. So we'll explain all of that and review it. And these terms do change a bit over time. So if you read Jess Humble's very famous book on continuous delivery, which is a few years old now, that wasn't for many people still is kind of the central cornerstone. But there are definitely things that change within it. We update our courseware quite regularly. So we had a version 2 update last year to the DevOps Foundation course, and we actually changed quite a lot of and updated the definitions around this. So we have lots of discussion about the tools and techniques that allow us to do this. Talk about the relationship between continuous delivery and DevOps. So a lot of people think that DevOps is continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is a component part. It's quite a critical component part because it's what it's about, what allows us to automate the delivery of software. And it's typically was a very big constraint, was the wall of confusion, people like to call it, between dev and ops, when we're chucking code over to ops and going, hey, deploy that for me, and people don't really know what's happening. This whole principle underpins bringing that back together. DevOps is much more than this, so it's much more than automation, it's much more than continuous delivery. It is about culture, it's about measurement, it's about sharing, it's about the way we work together. I've been starting in the last few weeks to start thinking that actually I'm not sure it is DevOps anymore. I think it's Biz IT. I'm seeing more and more patterns in organisations where the real constraint is the way that the business and IT people are trying to, and possibly failing to do it as effectively as they could, collaborate on delivering outcomes to their customers. So more technical course, this one. Again, we're not actually going to do anything technical like build continuous delivery, but we are going to learn about all of the principles and challenges in it. So again, who wants to do this course? So architects are particularly interested in this course, as you might imagine. And then, anyone that's involved in the development and delivery cycle, so pretty much everybody across the IT department there. Let's look at the DevOps Leader course. So we meet lots and lots of people, and in fact, in the early days of the DevOps Foundation course, particularly the public schedule, they were almost all populated by what we would call a change agent or a change leader. So somebody that was starting to lead the charge of DevOps in that particular organization, and push forward DevOps thinking and try and get a DevOps journey started. So those people have evolved over time. Lots of them have DevOps as a specific role in their daily work. We meet more and more people that have a full-time role and work with lots of people and see them make the transition from starting to think about DevOps and shout about it and talk about it, and then get themselves into a position where they have overall responsibility to drive that with a team through the organisation. So you'll see DevOps leads, DevOps lead engineers, DevOps evangelists, more and more of these roles coming through. So this is like the next level for this sort of person that's got the ball rolling and now wants to have their leadership skills and their leading kind of authority or knowledge around the DevOps subject recognised. So we go into a lot more detail than the foundation course. We spend a lot of time understanding tools that can be used when we're practicing DevOps within an organisation, encouraging the organisation to develop their DevOps thinking. So we mention here the Golden Circle, which is Simon Sinek's Organisation Why. We use the Organisation Why technique or principle a lot when we're doing things like vision workshops as part of a maturity assessment, for example. So it's a really effective way of building a foundation for thinking about what needs to change and what the core goals are. So we cover lots of these cultural bits here as well. So trying to work out how to get to self-organising teams and distribute authority. do quite a lot of work on conflict management, and these things about feedback loops and learning environments, how to help people that are experiencing lots of transformation or change programs and getting quite apathetic or bored a bit, how to help with that. And then very much around the metrics and the business side here. So this is really important for all organisations. It's quite challenging to do as well, because what we're really trying to do here is have conversations about continuous funding, because basically if we're not continuous funding, we're doing things in a waterfall manner, and that's what we're really trying to avoid in everything that we do when we do DevOps. So again, these are DevOps consultants, or I'd say the DevOps evangelists within organisations are the key ones that would really like to get involved with this. And then anybody who feels that they are being given a role where they are going to be expected to lead and further evangelise and run programs and drive cultural change will be very interested in this course too. So let's talk about the DevSecOps Engineer. So I wrote a blog post, as many of my sort of compadres in the DevOps environment did at the start of this year, forecasting what we thought was going to be big in 2017. I called out DevSecOps, as did many of my compadres. In fact, I was in Belfast the week before last, I think it was, at AppSec EU, where there was a whole dedicated DevSecOps track. So I spoke about what is a DevSecOps engineer. And you'll recall me saying a few moments ago, perhaps, that DevOps isn't one person's job, it's everyone's job, and that the same applies to security. Security is typically a very specialised area. Typically in an organisation, we will see a handful of security professionals amongst a great sea of other IT professionals. This makes security often a constraint, whether they want it to be or not. The fact that there aren't very many of them often makes that happen. There's also quite a big skills shortage in the security area. So I read a report just yesterday, actually, that said that it has been reported that over 1 million IT security roles are unfilled around the globe. So it's just not enough people. The threat landscape keeps on getting more and more complex and more scary. More and more outages and hacking incidents and things happen. So what we're really trying to do with this role, and it's important to remember that in DevOps we don't really like job titles, but we do like roles. So you could be a DevSecOps engineer, but that doesn't mean that's all you do. It means that you have this capability, as well as perhaps your development role or your sysadmin role or your continuous delivery role. This is another feather to your cap, a string to your bow, whichever particular analogy you would like. So what we're trying to teach here is, again, and there is a huge parallel between testing and security. So again, we're talking about shifting left. So doing security testing as early as possible, using tools to integrate security into the continuous delivery workflows, or even before that into the IDE or the integrated development environment, to ensure that we know that what we're putting in the software, whether it's static code or whether it's binaries or other artifacts, that we know that those things are safe. So that's the DevSecOps engineer. So yeah, the obvious people are the traditional IT security professionals. So, starting to try and help people not think about running massive pen tests every 6 months, but actually having maybe some coding and design standards that the developers can work to. As I say, maybe giving them some tools so that they can understand potentially the risks of the things that they're building, giving the ops staff the ability to review what you've already got. Our partner company, Sonotype, who are very big in this area, they make the artifact repository Maven and Nexus. They often talk about software being more like milk than wine, and what they mean by that is that software does not get better as it gets older. It often sours. So we'll have components in software that we will put in live and they will stay in live, but whilst that's happening, people will find or create vulnerabilities in them. So we need to understand sort of about backwards security compatibility, if you like. So this is all what the DevSecOps Engineer course is trying to teach us. So those were the courses. This final bit I wanted to talk about was about the Phoenix Project game. So many of you that are in the DevOps space will have heard and hopefully read the Phoenix Project. It's a novel about IT and DevOps. It's a brilliant read. It's because it's a novel, basically. So it's got a proper story and characterization, and it's really engaging. And what we felt was that there was a benefit of having some kind of DevOps simulation, some way of having immersive or experiential learning. So we worked with Dutch partner GamingWorks. GamingWorks have written many, many games over the years. Some of you may have played them previously, things like Apollo 13 and Grab a Pizza, the ITSM and project management games. And we worked with GamingWorks to build the Phoenix Project game with licensing approval and such like from IT Revolution Press, who published the Phoenix Project. So it's basically a card-based business simulation. So I've kind of wanted to show you, like, just to try and give you a feel for how it works. I was going to show you this, which is basically the room setup. So you can kind of imagine how it might work, that you walk into this room and you have these different roles available. So you can see there are 11 roles. So you've got the CISO role, VPIT, Ops, IT test team, change management. This is not so much a role in the game, actually, but a table of where the versions and things sit. Then we've got the IT support, tech ops, and lead engineer roles, application development, and then we've got the business roles as well. So it's actually really active. You can't really tell from a PDF of a room layout, but all these people will be standing up and moving around all day. It's a really busy day of trying to do things. And what the people are trying to do is they're trying to understand what business projects need to happen. So this is a project card here, and then what to put on their work boards. So these are all work boards down here. You can see there's some color coding going on. So this is a change management with their change calendar. And then we've got some testing things and system requirement things that are going on up here. And basically what's happening is that during the course of a round, and there's 4 rounds, and each round gets scored on the performance of the team in terms of the shareholder value and the revenue that is affected by what happens here. So they have to choose which cards they're going to put on their various workspaces. And if they get the right combinations of cards in the right places, this is where they do well. So it requires the teams to collaborate and discuss things, and all sorts of moments happen in the room just like they happen in the book. So there'll be moments where, if you've read the book, where Beal gets the team in the room and they basically create a massive Kanban board. They just put all the work on Post-it notes around the room and start to visualize as a team and where everything is. So lots of things happen like that. There's a case study here as well from John Leckie, who's head of ops at Auto Trader, just kind of saying, I wish we'd done this before. If we'd done this before, we would have been streets ahead. So, for the benefits of getting 11 people in a room, and actually we say up to 15 people, because it's always really valuable to get some observer roles in there, and they can do things like run retrospectives at the end of each round as well. The benefit of getting those people in the room and just getting people to learn how to collaborate with them and kind of surface how business and IT need to talk to each other and the activities that need to happen is extremely valuable. So lots of people like to run the Phoenix Project game alongside some of our training, in particular the DevOps Foundation course. So you get this concept of experiential learning. So you get to practice what you've learned in principle. It makes the learning what we call a lot more sticky, so it helps contextualize it much more. It's really interactive, as I said. It is a lot of fun as well. Can be quite stressful. I quite enjoy playing the game leader role quite often, which is like a CEO role. One of my jobs is to bring in incidents as they happen. So that's always gets you to be quite unpopular if you're handing out incidents left, right, and centre. And we have the doing and the reflection. So that was a quick tour of our education services. I think I am about on my 30 minutes. So I'm just going to take a few moments for questions. I can see we've got at least one, so I just need to get to the question section. So first question is, would I recommend going through training before doing the game? That's a great question, actually. And like with many things in life, there's no right or wrong answer for that. It really depends on the organisation, where they are in the journey and what they want to achieve. So we've had lots of examples of people just doing the training, people just doing the game, and people doing a combination thereof. I would obviously say that I think doing the combination thereof is the strongest option, as we've just covered. But it really, it depends. So some companies that we've done the game with, for example, the RSPB, that's the Royal Society for Protection of Birds in the UK. It's one of our biggest charities, one very close to my heart. I am a member and I use their services a lot, because one of the things that they do is that they have a webcam on the cathedral in the city that I live in, and the webcam is focused on a nest of peregrine falcons, which I'm very interested in. Anyway, I digress. One of the challenges that our RSPB have, which is common to most organisations in the EU, actually, so there's a new data privacy rule coming out called GDPR, and it changes the way that we manage people's data. And someone like RSPB has quite a lot of personal data of their members. So what we did with them is we'd run just the game alone to help that new team that were being brought together to tackle GDPR figure out some super effective ways of getting stuff done. And it was really valuable. There's a blog that you can find on our website. In fact, Geddy, I'm sure you're scribbling down notes, so let's make sure there's a link to that blog in the notes as well. As I said, though, the combination of doing the course and the game is really valuable, because when you do the course, you learn all the theory. When you do the game, you practice it. So, as I said, it makes it really sticky. It really brings a lot of the training to life. So moving on to the next question, also excellent question. Can you have the business involved in the game as well as IT? I can't emphasize this enough. I actually want to say you shouldn't run the game without the business. This is where the real value surface. So when we first kind of thought something like this would be useful before we started writing it, one of the use cases we had was around product owners. So as organisations move from waterfally project type work towards product focused work, it's quite often led by IT. And this is what I was saying earlier about DevOps being often about BizIT or BizIT these days. Is the business often isn't fully up to speed with what IT is trying to do when we're doing Agile, isn't fully up to speed with what we're trying to do when we're delivering software incrementally and fast, and we need more help. So we keep on seeing a pattern at the moment where organisations have basically got business analysts that are acting as product owners by proxy, and it's inelegant and comes with a whole host of problems in terms of requirements and feedback, and just doesn't work right. So there absolutely should be business in the room. Now, you haven't asked me this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it is quite interesting. We have some organisations that like everyone to play the game in their current roles, and then some people that like to mix everyone up so they're not in their normal roles. Again, it's really a matter for you to decide which you want to do, because there is advantages of each. The advantage of having you playing the game in your existing role is that you can take everything that you do day to day and apply it, and take everything you learn in the room and apply it straight out. But if you play different roles, you might find that people create more or generate more empathy for each other. So I guess you might want to weigh up things like whether you're doing the game to drive cultural change and improve collaboration and understanding, in which case you might want to mix people's roles around, or if you're really focused on getting some quick wins around practical working techniques, you might want to keep people in the same places. So I think we've got one more question. No, two more questions. So how many can fit in the game? So there are 12 roles in the game, but if you've been eagle-eared, you'll have heard me saying 11. So what the 12th role is the game leader role, which is the basically a split between the CEO and the CIO roles that games leader plays. And then there's 11 other roles. I showed you them a minute ago on the room layout. But I did mention that we like to say you can have up to 15 people playing the game, because we always like to leave room for some observers as well. So we recommend 4, put one in each corner of the room. They're really useful because it does get quite hectic and crazy at times. So it's good to have people kind of that are just stood on the outside looking in and watching what's happening. And as I say, they're really useful for running the retrospectives as well. So do we facilitate the training and game globally? Yeah, absolutely. We can go anywhere, either from the UK, or we do have trainers around the world as well. Some people ask us about the game if they can just play it themselves and we can give it to them in a box, and it really doesn't work like that, because there's quite a lot of specialist knowledge that the game leader has learned about how to set up the cards, what happens in certain scenarios if cards go missing and things like that, how to do the scoring. So scoring needs to happen at the end of every round so that you know how you've performed against the revenue and share price targets that you've got. But yes, we can go and do the game anywhere, and we've been to lots of places to do it already. So I think that's all the questions that I had. So thank you very much, everybody, for your participation today. There will be a follow-up email, or if you're listening to the recording and you've got any questions, you can email us at hello@ranger4.com. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their afternoon, morning, day, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much and goodbye.